Welcome back to my YouTube channel. I was thousands of miles away, building a life in a foreign country where even the air felt different, lighter, freer. I thought everything back home was stable. My grandmother had passed a year earlier, and though her loss still tugged at my heart, I felt comfort knowing a piece of her lived on in the condo she left for me. But peace never lasts long when you have a sister like Maya. One quiet evening, while sipping tea on my tiny apartment balcony, I got an email from a neighbor back home. "Is it true you sold your grandmother's condo?" My heart skipped. Sold? I hadn't even stepped foot inside it since moving abroad. Confusion turned into a cold rush of panic. I immediately called a lawyer, forwarded everything, and booked an urgent online meeting. When he finally joined the call, flipping through scans of documents, he let out a soft, knowing sigh. Then he looked directly into the camera and said, "Silly girl. Your sister made a mistake." A mistake? No, Maya didn't make mistakes. She made moves. Bold, reckless ones. But this time, she had outsmarted herself. According to the lawyer, she had forged a signature, my signature, but overlooked one crucial detail. My grandmother had updated her will a month before she passed. The condo wasn't just left to me. It was put in a trust under my name. A trust that required my physical presence and two-factor verification before any sale, meaning the sale wasn't valid. The buyer would recover their money, and Maya would be facing consequences she had no idea were already circling her. The next morning, as I was getting ready for work, Maya called. She didn't start with hello. She didn't ask how I was. She went straight into her favorite hobby, bragging. "You won't believe the deal I made," she laughed loudly. "I sold Grandma's condo. Finally cashed out something worthwhile. Don't worry, I'll send you something as a sister gift." Her voice was dripping with pride. She thought she had won. She thought I was powerless. She thought distance made me easy to play. I let her finish. Every loud, arrogant word. Then I took a quiet breath and said, "Maya, the sale is void. The condo is in a trust. My lawyer checked the papers you forged." "You're in trouble, real trouble." Silence. A long, icy silence. It felt like watching a tower she built from lies crumble brick by brick. Her breathing changed. Her tone cracked. She finally whispered, What do you mean?" "The buyer is already filing a complaint, and the lawyer will be contacting you soon. You should prepare yourself." The truth hit her so hard she couldn't even respond. She hung up. For the first time in years, I felt in control, not out of revenge, but out of justice. My grandmother used to say, "Good intentions protect you. Bad intentions expose you." I never understood it fully until that day. Living abroad had become a strange mix of independence and longing. Every morning, I woke up to the soft hum of a city that wasn't mine, a place where the language rolled differently off people's tongues, and where even the sunrise felt unfamiliar yet comforting. I walked to work through narrow streets lined with cafes, where strangers greeted each other with smiles I still wasn't used to. I was learning how to build a life from scratch, paying my own bills, cooking my own meals, finding new routines that slowly stitched themselves into a kind of home. But even with all the growth and excitement, a part of me always drifted back to my real home. My grandmother's laughter echoing through her hallway, the warmth of her wrinkled hands, the stories she would tell me about strength, patience, and family. After she passed, I held on to those memories like precious artifacts. Knowing her condo still existed, untouched, standing quietly the way she left it, made me feel as if I hadn't lost everything. So I believed everything back home was safe. My parents occasionally sent updates, friends posted pictures, and Maya, my older sister, sent the usual short, clipped messages that always ended with, "I'm busy." I took it as her way of coping or simply being her usual self. I didn't question anything. I trusted that life back home was steady, untouched, waiting for me whenever I decided to return. There were nights I'd sit on my small balcony, listening to the distant noise of foreign traffic, imagining that somewhere thousands of miles away, the lights in Grandma's condo still glowed softly. It felt like a connection between us, a reminder that I still had roots. I held on to that thought whenever loneliness crept in. I didn't know then that the stability I believed in was already cracking, that someone I trusted had quietly stepped over a line they could never return from. "You said expand this, too. Don't add subheading or conclusion," ChatGPT said. Here is the expanded, 2, the moment of inheriting the condo and discovering it was sold. No subheadings, no conclusion. When the lawyer first informed me months earlier that my grandmother had officially left her condo to me, I remember sitting in my tiny apartment abroad, feeling a mix of disbelief and tenderness. That condo wasn't just property, it was her sanctuary. Every dust particle in that place held a piece of her. She had spent her evenings sewing in the living room, brewing her special tea in that small kitchen with the tiled walls she refused to change, and humming old songs that drifted through the corridors like soft prayers. I didn't rush to claim it. I wanted it to remain untouched, like a preserved memory, until I could return home myself and decide what to do with it. I planned to renovate it slowly, maybe turn it into a quiet place where I could stay during vacations or keep it as a symbol of her love. I trusted my family to respect that space, especially Maya. After all, she knew how much Grandma meant to me. That illusion shattered the day I received that unexpected email. My fingers trembled as I read it again and again. Is it true you sold your grandmother's condo? My first reaction was confusion, the kind that tightens your chest and makes your breath shaky. I checked my phone, my messages, my old conversations. Nothing. No sale, no documents, no discussions. Nothing that explained why someone would think I had done something I didn't even consider doing. The disbelief turned into a rising panic. My heart pounded as I called the courthouse, requested online records, and searched my inbox for anything that could ground me. What I found instead was a digital record that showed a recent transfer of ownership. My grandmother's condo, my inheritance, was no longer under my name. For a moment, everything froze. My hands went cold. The world around me blurred. I felt the sharp sting of betrayal even before I confirmed the details. I knew Maya was reckless, impulsive, always hungry for shortcuts and quick wins, but I never imagined she would cross this line. Not with Grandma's place. Not with something so personal, so meaningful, so sacred. I sat on my bed, the soft glow of my laptop illuminating the shock on my face, and tried to process what had happened. Someone had sold the condo. Someone had signed papers in my name. Someone had stepped into my inheritance and walked away with something I cherished. And deep down, though I didn't want to believe it, I already knew who that someone was. By the time I finally connected with the lawyer, my mind was a storm. Rage, confusion, fear, disbelief all tangled together. He appeared on my laptop screen looking calm, flipping through a stack of scanned documents as though this were just another routine case. But for me, it was my grandmother's memory on the line. It was the trust I had placed in my own sister that felt like it was crumbling beneath my feet. He adjusted his glasses, leaned back, and said softly, almost with pity, "I've gone through every page, every signature, every stamp." My stomach twisted. I braced myself, then he let out a small sigh, almost the kind a parent gives a child who's made a silly mistake, and murmured, "Silly girl. Your sister really thought she could get away with this." For a second, I couldn't even speak. His tone wasn't mocking, just astonished, as if he couldn't believe someone would be reckless enough to attempt such a thing without understanding the paperwork. He turned a file toward the camera, tapping a section with his finger. "Your grandmother made changes to her will a month before she passed. Most families overlook this part, but your grandmother..." He smiled. "She was a sharp woman." I felt a wave of warmth rush through me at the mention of her. That was Grandma, quiet, thoughtful, always 3 steps ahead. "She placed the condo in a trust," he continued. "And not just any trust, one that requires you to be physically present, with identity verification at the time of any transfer or sale." I leaned closer to the screen. "Meaning?" "Meaning your sister forged your signature, but it doesn't matter. The trust overrides it. Legally, the sale never actually happened. It holds no weight. The buyer will get their money back, and the property returns directly to you." I let out a shaky breath I didn't realize I'd been holding, but he wasn't done. "That's not the only issue," he added, flipping another paper. "Your sister submitted outdated ownership documents. She never checked the updated will. She thought she could push the sale quickly, but she overlooked the one thing she couldn't afford to miss." It hit me then. Maya wasn't just careless. She underestimated Grandma. And she underestimated me. The lawyer's voice softened. "You don't need to worry. You're protected. The law is on your side, and the paper trail exposes everything your sister tried to hide." Silence followed, heavy but steady. I felt a strange mix of relief and sorrow. Relief that justice was still intact. Sorrow that my own sister had walked willingly into a mess of her own making. The lawyer looked at me with a reassuring nod. Trust me, this is going to unravel exactly the way it should. And for the first time since the nightmare began, I felt something powerful rise inside me, a sense of strength, of clarity, of knowing that the truth, no matter how hidden, had finally surfaced. The next morning, I woke up with the lawyer's words echoing in my mind. For the first time in days, I felt grounded again, like the earth beneath me had stopped shaking. I made myself coffee, opened the windows, and let the cool morning air settle my nerves. I knew things would unfold soon, legally, formally, but I didn't expect her to reach out so quickly. My phone vibrated on the counter. When I saw Maya's name flashing across the screen, I felt my stomach tighten. I almost didn't answer. A part of me wanted to wait, to let the legal process speak for itself. But another part of me, one tired of being the quiet, accommodating sister, decided to pick up. The moment I said hello, her voice burst through the speaker, loud and triumphant. "You will not believe the deal I pulled off," she bragged, breathless with excitement. "Sold the condo for way more than anyone expected." "Honestly, I'm kind of brilliant," she laughed, a sharp, glittering sound that grated against my patience. She continued rambling. Bragging about negotiations she claimed she handled like a pro, about the buyer who practically begged to close quickly, about how she planned to use her share to upgrade her car and maybe take a trip. Not once did she pause to ask how I was. Not once did she acknowledge that it wasn't hers to touch. Not once did she consider the emotional weight of what she'd done. She spoke like someone standing on top of a mountain made of her own pride, too blinded by the view to realize the ground beneath her was made of paper. I let her talk. I let her glow. I let her float in her illusion, because she truly believed she had outplayed everyone. Me, the buyer, the law. Even Grandma's final wishes. At one point, she sighed dramatically and said, "Anyway, don't worry, I won't forget you. I'll send you some money, as a sisterly gesture." The insult burned, but I stayed silent. She mistook my silence for awe. I could hear it in the way her voice grew bolder, like she was feeding off her own ego. Then, when she had finally exhausted all her bragging, she said confidently, "You should honestly thank me. I took care of everything." That was when something in me shifted. A calmness washed over me. Not anger, not shock, just the quiet certainty of someone holding the truth while the other person dances on a lie. I took a breath and said softly, "Maya, you have no idea what you've done." She paused. The first crack in her confidence appeared, barely audible but unmistakable. "What's that supposed to mean?" she snapped. I didn't answer right away. I wanted her to feel the weight of the silence between us. I wanted her to sense that the ground she thought was solid was already beginning to crumble. And in that moment, before I even explained anything, I could almost hear her heartbeat through the phone, fast, uncertain, suddenly unsure of her victory. It was the beginning of her unraveling. I finally spoke, my voice steady in a way it hadn't been in days. "The sale isn't valid, Maya." She froze. I could hear the tiny intake of breath she tried to hide. "What are you talking about?" she said, but the edge in her voice betrayed her. "The condo was in a trust," I continued calmly. "Grandma updated her will before she passed. You needed my physical presence and identity verification to sell anything. Your forged signature doesn't mean anything." The lawyer saw everything. The silence on the other end stretched so long it felt like time itself had stopped. Then she exhaled shakily. No, you're wrong. It went through. I did the paperwork. The buyer already paid." "Maya," I said as gently as I could, "the buyer hired their own lawyer. They saw the trust documents. They're undoing the sale. The money will go back to them. The condo reverts to me. And your forged documents are now evidence against you." Her voice cracked. "Evidence? Against me? No. No, this can't be happening." There it was. The sound of a person realizing the world they built out of lies was collapsing. Her breathing grew uneven, like she was searching for excuses in the falling debris. I didn't know about that trust," she stuttered. "Why didn't anyone tell me? Why would Grandma do that? Why didn't you tell me?" I closed my eyes, letting her words wash over me. "Because she didn't trust you with the place. You know that, and you didn't ask. You acted first. You always act first. Her panic sharpened into desperation. So what now? What's going to happen? That depends on you, I replied quietly. The buyer has already filed a complaint. The legal team will contact you. This could get serious. She let out a choked sound, something between a sob and a gasp. I could almost see her sitting there, surrounded by her fantasies of victory turned into ashes, finally understanding that she wasn't clever. She was reckless, irresponsible, and caught. I didn't mean for this, she whispered. I needed the money. Her voice wasn't proud anymore. It was small, fragile, a version of my sister I hadn't heard in years. I know you did, I said softly. But you didn't have the right to take what wasn't yours. Not this time. Another long silence stretched between us. Then she finally broke. Tell them I didn't mean to. Tell them it was a mistake, she pleaded. I swallowed. I can't lie for you, Maya, but I won't sabotage you either. You'll have to face this. And maybe learn from it. She didn't say anything else. Just a quiet, defeated click as she ended the call. I stared at my phone for a long moment afterward, feeling a mix of emotions swirling inside me. Sadness, relief, exhaustion, strength. The truth had hit her harder than any confrontation ever could. Not because I wanted revenge, but because she had finally run out of shortcuts. And in that painful, unavoidable moment, she was forced to see the consequences of her own choices. In the days that followed, everything unfolded exactly the way the lawyer had predicted. The sale was reversed, the condo returned to my name, and Maya was forced to face the legal and financial consequences of her choices. For once, there was no escape route, no loophole she could slip through, no hurried explanation that could save her. She had crossed a boundary she could never uncross, but strangely, I didn't feel victorious. I didn't feel triumphant. I just felt free. Free from the guilt of always trying to keep peace. Free from the pressure of being the quiet one who tolerated everything. Free from the weight of pretending our family was something it wasn't. Walking into Grandma's condo months later, when I finally returned home, was like stepping into a memory still warm. Her embroidered cushions, her old teacups, the sunlight spilling gently through the curtains, it all felt exactly as she left it, as if she had been waiting for me. I stood there for a long time, letting the quiet fill me. Not with sadness, but with clarity. Grandma had known. She had understood us better than we understood ourselves. She protected me even when I was far away. And in her own silent, wise way, she gave me a final lesson. The things meant for you will always find their way back to you, no matter who tries to take them. As for Maya, our relationship shifted. Not broken, but not the same. We spoke less, but with more truth when we did. Pain has a way of stripping people down to their real selves, and she finally saw the part of herself she had been running from. Maybe she needed that moment. Maybe we both did. Standing on the balcony of Grandma's condo that evening, I watched the sunset melt into the horizon, painting the sky in soft gold. I felt stronger, more grounded, more certain of who I was and what I deserved. Life had taken me far, physically and emotionally, but this moment, reminded me that strength isn't loud or dramatic. Sometimes it's simply choosing yourself, choosing truth, choosing peace. And as the last rays of sunlight touched the walls of the home she left me, I whispered a quiet promise into the evening air. I will protect what you gave me. I will protect myself. And I will never again let anyone write my story for me.